Good afternoon on what is a warm, bright and sunny day. It is Friday the 25th of March and I've got a parcel to unbox, so let's get started. And I've got, of course, a nice hot cup of tea. And this feels like a book, and I'm quite correct. It's not a gaming book, folks, so I do read other books apart from gaming books. But it's Today, A History of Our World, 360 Years of Conversations and Controversies. Now, for those of you not to know, Today is the flagship news programme on Radio 4, which is the BBC's premier speech station. And Today runs typically throughout the week from 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the morning, broadcasting news, sport, cultural coverage, and it's really and generally interviews with people associated in that today's news stories, especially politicians, some of whom would like to go on there and be interviewed, some of whom who don't, because they can be they regard they're going to get a grilling. The Tory party in particular, how Conservatives in this country have tended to avoid it. Just as they don't like going on the BBC because they consider it to be bias. But anyway, so the Today programme itself, is over 60 years old. This was published when, let's have a look, a couple of years ago, 2019. So it started in 1959 when it was sort of generally sort of a current affairs and sort of like a general programme, and lots of say news and softer coverage, but it got harder over the years. So today it is primarily news coverage and interviews and so on. But the book itself, say Today, marks 6 decades of BBC Radio 4's Today programme with 60 world-changing stories as they were broadcast, covering war, rebellion and political transformation to significant changes in culture, society and the scientific world. The first ever book from the Today programme explores events as they happened and how they changed the world around us. From the fall of the Berlin Wall and the anti-apartheid movement to 9/11 and the rise of the Islamic State, from the Rushdie affair to the emergence of Britart, and from space exploration to tomorrow's world of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Today reflects 6 decades of the sound of history being made live on the air. And it's interesting to note that the Today programme is also one of those programmes of such cultural significance. It's actually, if you're a submarine captain in the British Navy, essentially, and you, one of the things, if there's ever a nuclear alert or signs of a nuclear war, one of the things you check for is to see whether or not the Today programme isn't being broadcast. Seriously, I'm not kidding. That's one of the signs that there might be a nuclear war. The Today programme isn't being broadcast. So we get into, we have it broken down by chapter. So we have chapter 1, Rebellion, Revolution and Protest, chapter 2, Britain's political landscape, war, conflict and security for chapter 3, art, culture and sport for chapter 4, social change chapter 5, the natural world, science and technology for chapter 6. And in each of these we have 10 particular essays or interviews, and we've got a forward by Nick Robinson, who's one of the current presenters on the programme in 2022, and again also with Kearney, who is also one of the presenters, in general, they will stay on the programme for several years at a time. You know, they will remain loyal to it, and the journalism that it does. And we've got an introduction to what the Today programme is and its origins. Again, another stalwart past presenter, Edward Stourton, who still presents content on Radio 4, documentaries and so on, and the religious strand on a Sunday morning. Basically, is the story of the Today programme. So quite lengthy. Another thing is, Radio 4 doesn't get a lot of books necessarily published about it. You'll mostly see them, well, potentially occasionally about the long-running, or the longest-running radio soap opera, The Archers. So that's coverage there, and also covered basically the bits and pieces about its comedy. 2 flagship items of comedy. So the Just a Minute, there's a book about the history of Just a Minute, which is worth reading, and books to support basically about the other one, I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue. Both of which, you may need to go find. I mean, if you're interested in British comedy, I would recommend both of those, and check out some episodes on YouTube, as well as on the BBC. You will find plenty there, and I will honestly tell you they're both very funny. Both my partner and I, we're big fans of them. And then we sort of get into the first chapter, and it is Rebellion, Revolution, Protest. And we start off with the apartheid and its international opponents, and these are essentially transcripts of interviews. They are dealing with important, basically events, and really talking to the people who would have been involved in them and getting what their responses to them. So, we do have, and we also got a selection of scenario photographs in here, so behind the scenes, notable presenters. That's Brian Redhead, who presented for many years, and John Humphreys, again, really known for the strength of their political interviews, and nobody liked being interviewed by them. And then they are in action, essentially, in the studio. And this would have been sort of like within the last 10 years, because John Humphreys only retired a couple of years ago. And that's their sort of like the full team in process there. And the thing is, the Today programme is such a it's such an iconic programme. Genuinely, that essentially part of the Radio 4 landscape is that it has been parodied again and again by Dead Ringers, which is a team of impressionists and satirists. And then of course, part of the BBC's news remit, of course, is foreign news. Does have a wide-ranging foreign news, and where we have shots out in the field, and then political figures. Interview with John Major there, past Prime Minister, and then Gordon Brown, another past Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn, whom next but one, leader of the Labour Party, delightful Mr. Gove, and then we have notable guests, and in addition to essentially every Christmas, what happens is the programme has guest editors, and they enables the programme to look at particular subjects that are important to these guest editors, and focus on them, whereas the normal programme during the rest of the year might not. For example, we have John Humphreys with Jimmy Carter there. So this is sort of interesting book that if you have sort of like, I want to read this, partly because I've been listening to the programme as an adult for most of my life. When my radio listening is sort of like really sort of like began, would have been with Radio 2 with my parents, so that would have been Terry Wogan, and then me moving over to Radio 1 until I was in my mid-teens, and then I switched over to Radio 4, and this is really what I've been listening to ever since. So that's that is 40 years more or less. So that's why I was interested in, and also because I'm interested in history and the most recent events, and sort of like the events that I've not really read about sort of like really before I began listening to the series. Looking forward to reading that. And I mean, so basically, if you've got any interest in sort of like history and social change, I think this provides certainly an interesting lens upon it. So that's today, a history of our world in 60 years, Conversations Controversies. Not a role-playing book, but I think if you are, any interest in sort of like history and recent events, then may well be worth tracking down. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that unboxing in the Nook, as different as it was. If you did, then please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me with a parcel and a book, or a game, in this case a book, which I will unbox and just about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, then please do click on the like button down below. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.